Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Cybersecurity Readiness to Protect Against Today's Top Threats. I'd like to turn the controls over to our speakers for today. And while I do that, I will tell you a little bit about each of them. Joshua Pesce is Roundtable Technologies CIO, cybersecurity expert, and an accomplished technology leader with more than 2 decades of experience leading technology change for over 1,000 New York City nonprofit organizations. Joshua has a proven track record for planning, implementing, and supporting a wide range of successful technology solutions for nonprofits. Destiny Bowers is Roundtable Technologies Cloud and VCISO expert. Destiny is a cloud expert with over 10 years helping nonprofits navigate the path to the cloud, from planning to migration to training and optimization. Shanna Utgard is the Senior Cybersecurity Advocate at Defendify, the all-in-one cybersecurity platform that is simple, affordable, and works on multiple levels. She is a CRN, Woman of the Channel Award winner, member of the NSCA Emerging Technologies Committee and SIA Women in Security Forum, and holds several CompTIA certifications. And with all of those acronyms, I will pass it over to Josh, Destiny, and Shanna.
All right, thank you so very much. All right, welcome everybody. It is a pleasure to be here today, and I'm going to let Shanna talk us through what we're going to do over the next 90 minutes.
I am Shanna Utgard. As we said, I am the Senior Cybersecurity Advocate at Defendify. So in this presentation, I'm basically going to be moderating for everybody, and Destiny, Joshua, and I will just be talking about cybersecurity threats. So we're going to start off with the IDOART, which is a great learning design structure. So our intention here is to provide a fun, engaging webinar. We're going to raise your cybersecurity awareness. You are going to have fun, learn about cybersecurity risks and preventive measures, and feel empowered to take some action. Our agenda, we're going to mix it up a little bit. It'll be some slides, some videos, some polls. It'll be very entertaining and engaging. And at the end, there will be a quiz where you can actually win some prizes. Destiny, Joshua, and I will bring some energy. We'll be prepared and we will run on time. And all we ask of you is that you bring some questions, your attention, and some suggestions, and have fun. You can use the chat for any of those questions. Please be courteous and respectful.
So real quick, Yvonne already gave us the introduction, so thank you so much, but we just want to tell you very quickly about Roundtable Technology. We are a managed service provider. We specialize in serving nonprofit organizations, and basically we try to help you with any aspect of technology with which you may be struggling, and today we really want to help you with cybersecurity. And Shanna, I'll let you talk about yourself and Defendify.
I am the Senior Cybersecurity Advocate at Defendify, so I am the one that walks around banging the gong about cyber threats because in a past life, I actually wired $2.1 million to a cyber criminal. So I didn't come from a technical background, which thankfully I will spare you a lot of that acronym alphabet soup. I'm not going to tech talk you, but I had a very personal experience, and there is nothing that compares to the feeling of sending a lot of money to a place that it should not have gone. And if we have some time at the end, I will share a little bit of the details there of what actually happened. And once you've got a really good understanding of how these attacks are perpetrated. So I'll give you some details. It's a fun story.
So identity theft, ransomware, and phishing, those are the top 3. And ransomware with a different spelling is also up there.
Lots of good ones. So, all right, well, thank you, everybody. That's nothing. I'm looking real quick. Anything, Destiny or Shanna, that you find surprising that's on that list? Anything?
No, but whoever put all of them gets a gold star.
Just everything. And that's why you're here today, and that's why we're here today, to talk a little bit more about people and cybersecurity.
When most people think of cybersecurity, usually technology comes to mind. So Joshua, where do people come into play here?
Yeah, so there obviously is a lot of technology involved in cybersecurity, but honestly, most of the attacks that happen start with people, start with a phishing or a social engineering attack. Basically, everything we're going to talk about today, just people making errors. And the other thing about this is, for all of you that are attending today, everything we're going to go over is every bit as much applicable to your personal digital security, helping yourself, your friends, your family be secure, as your organization. So you're not just helping your organization today, you are helping yourself and anyone you know also be more digitally secure, all right? It's totally applicable. And hey, we get it if you feel like this. Like, oh gosh, it's...
How did you get footage of me in the gym?
It's not that hard,
More people
Shannon.
resemble this.
Did you hit the security cameras?
So yeah, we get it if you feel like this, and we want to make it clear, like, we're not trying to make your life harder. This is not what we're trying to do to you. This is not what we're suggesting that you go do, is lock yourself up with so many locks you can't even work or get anything done, like this poor bicycle here that, you know, is very safe from being stolen, but not very rideable, right? What we are trying to do are make their lives harder, all right? The criminals, the, you know, spies, the nation states that are trying to either disrupt your work, or, as we will get into, mostly they're just trying to get money from you, all right? And that's a threat that all of us share, whether we're a small little nonprofit organization or a Fortune 500 company. Cyber criminals are trying to take our money. All right. Very quickly, okay, we have all learned way more than we wanted to about how respiratory viruses move around over the last 18 months or so. And there's this concept called layers of defense. And this was in the New York Times probably about a year ago. And it's talking about how there's, you know, no single intervention that you can take that completely protects you from a respiratory virus like COVID. But if you combine interventions, okay, if I mask and I get vaccinated and I socially distance and I practice good hygiene and I maintain, you know, healthy habits and get enough sleep and I do all these things, then it's much less likely that I will contract COVID. And if I do contract COVID, it's much less likely that I'll have a severe case of COVID. All right, these are, you know, data supported kind of ideas. Cybersecurity is almost exactly the same. All right,
And it makes a great mug.
And Destiny's even got the mug, where, you know, nothing that you can do is going to prevent. You can't. There's no single defense that is perfect against cybersecurity. That will be on the quiz. So there is no single thing you can do that is a complete defense against cybersecurity. But if you combine multiple layers of defense, then you can make it much less likely that your organization will suffer any kind of cyber incident. And if you do have an incident, it's much less likely to be severe. It will be much less severe. Now, today, we're going to be focusing on these two areas because, of course, we're mostly focused on people today, and these are the areas that most impact everybody in an organization. But more on the rest of this as we get toward the end, where we'll touch on where, if you're someone who wants to learn all of this stuff, we'll let you know how you can do that.
And we do hear this a lot, where there's the idea of, well, we're a small nonprofit, we don't have anything of value, why would we be a target? Our mission isn't something that's you know, contested by a lot of folks. So
Yep.
Why are we concerned about cybersecurity?
These are really good questions, Destiny, and obviously you and I will hear this from time to time, less so these days, but it's really important to understand that to the criminals, sadly, you're just a commodity. And every asset that your organization has is a commodity. So if they can just steal money directly from you, hey, we'll do that. But if we can take something that's worth money, right, like passwords or identities or financial information or sensitive data, right, then I'll just steal that stuff. And there are actual market values, just like there's, you know, price per barrel of crude oil or, you know, price per bushel of corn. There's how much a social security numbers work, how much a credit card with this, you know, CVV, how much with all the address information, medical records. So this stuff's just worth money on the dark web or as extortion or other things.
So how does that get monetized?
Well, so there's a lot of different ways that cyber criminals will monetize you, and, you know, Shannon or Destiny, if I miss any, but, you know, the first and foremost, they'll simply ask you, you know, for money. And that we'll talk about how that works through business email compromise. They'll steal your data and encrypt it. That's ransomware attacks, and then demand money in order to give you that data back. And then they'll extort you, where we'll say, we've gotten this data, and if you don't pay us a ransom, we'll release all this information, you know, on the web. They'll do wire fraud transactions. Oh, you know, in a day before a big financial transaction is about to happen. Oh, by the way, it's not supposed to go to this account. It's supposed to go to this account. And by the way, Shannon can relate to that very well. And lots, you know, gift card scams. You know, the new employee, every way that you can think of, they're trying to just get money out of you. And here's a
Another
very
one too that we're seeing a lot now is not only are they, extorting you with ransomware for the keys to unencrypt your files, but also they're auctioning off the data on the dark web. So it's not just the threat of if you don't pay us, we're going to release this, and then you'll have a data breach on your hands. But there's also like they're making money on the other side of it in auctioning off medical records or
You mean there is no honor
personal
amongst
information.
thieves? Really?
No, correct.
All right, and this article out of the Wall Street Journal, not more than I want to say 3 months ago. We have a link to this in the slides. Hackers took $650,000. Again, basic business email compromise. Essentially, just emailing someone at the organization and asking if they'll wire them $650,000.
Wait, people don't give stuff away just by asking for it.
That actually worked. It's kind of ironic, the name of the company too.
It is, yeah, One Treasure Island, right?
They were kind of asking for it, but just ask for it and we're going to get it, says the criminal.
Well, it's kind of ironic. So we'll try our first video here. Hopefully this will work for everybody, but let's give this a little play. Okay, so let's watch what happens if you just ask someone.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon.
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gemma, 1, 2, 3. Spelled Gemma.
Well, most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
like what's a good Italian password?
My grandma's name.
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, now you know my password. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We will jump straight into Destiny. People wondering, they saw that Swiss cheese model and wondering, like, how do they think about where to start in cybersecurity? What would you say to them?
And it's like anything else. You can't protect something if you don't know what you have. And once you've identified what you have to think about who's out to get it and in what ways you need to protect it. So this is a very simple example of a threat model. 5 questions that you think about organizationally. What do I have? Get that inventory of your tech stack, of your other assets, your other digital assets, and then take into consideration from there who's out to get it. We all know that somebody wants to monetize it, but do you have specific types of threats? And then how bad are the consequences if you fail? If someone gets to your Twitter account, is that going to be organization ending versus if someone gets to your bank accounts or to your email? Then the likelihood of protection. If you're saying I've got single sign-on and multi-factor authentication and all of these other protections on my email account, and so it's not likely that someone can compromise them, but my website is really old and we don't update our plugins and we don't even know who the admin is, then chances are you probably will see a stronger likelihood of a compromise. So in the end of it, you'll take this and go, how much trouble am I going to go through to protect it? Is it worth a $30,000 website revamp, or do I just put some additional security layers on it? So once you do your threat model, this is going to help give you that insight into the next steps that you're going to take to protect yourself. And we're going to go a little bit more into all of the ways that the attackers are going to try and get you at you, those techniques that they have. And so we're going to watch another little video here that's going to show how multiple techniques were strung together in order to perform a compromise on an organization.
In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team show us how it's done. Step 1, spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's survey -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just clicked open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on his computer right now.
All right, Destiny, talk us through the kind of techniques that David used there.
So there are multiple tactics here that he utilized. And one thing that I want to point out about social engineering in general is that this is not technology related. People have been manipulating other people ever since there were people. So a lot of the concepts we have could be seen on technology. You think about like con men and historically all of the different things that have gone on, from Ponzi schemes to, if you ever saw the movie The Sting, right? So this is all about how people manipulate people into doing the thing that they want. And in our examples, that thing is going to be technology related, but the concepts stay the same for everybody. And it's also worth noting that a lot of us are not criminals. We don't have a criminal mind. So we don't look at things through the lens of how could this particular question, action, or other thing be an inroad for a criminal act or for a cyber threat. So that's sometimes you have to put on your like, I'm going to think like a criminal hat when we talk about the social engineering side of things. So the first thing we
have a poll just asking which of you are criminals, just in case there are criminals.
Raise your hand if you're a criminal.
Yeah.
Hey, now we know where that 2.1 million really went, Shanna. But the first thing that we're going to see, and this was in the David scenario, where you have a pretext. This is basically creating a plausible story that is going to get someone to do what you want. Yes, in Jimmy Kimmel video, you walked up on the street and said, hey, we're Jimmy Kimmel and we're asking about passwords. A pretext would have been a cyber criminal pretending to be Jimmy Kimmel going out on the street and asking people about passwords. So it's creating that air of legitimacy surrounding your request that they are then going to use to initiate this request. I'm sure cyber criminals would love to sit there and have you hand them passwords and other things voluntarily, but these are going to be typically started by the criminal actor in the first place. They're going to come to you, they're going to call you, they're going to email you, they're going to send you something, they're going to text you. So think about when something is initiated, that's always a little trigger for you. The other thing that they're going to try and display is an air of authority. Now, authority can come to us in many different ways. It can be something as straightforward as this is my boss or this is a senior officer of the company. But we can think of things in an authoritative way. It's an account holder, so this is my bank. This is my social media account. It is something that has value to me. And if they have control over it, then that makes them authoritative over it. We also take into account that humans in general have more of a fear of losing something that they already possess than gaining something they do not have. So the fear factor is also introduced into a lot of social engineering because they want you to go, I don't want to lose this thing, the risk aversion that you have that comes with that. And the other thing that they're going to layer on top of this is urgency. You need to do this thing right away. We want to keep you in that state of panic so you do not think clearly about the request. You don't take into account, why would the CEO be asking me for gift cards, or why would I, have a bank account at a bank that I've never heard of before, things along those lines. Because another part of the urgency to get you to act is to prevent you from doing what I like to call my one-word cybersecurity training, and that is verify. Verify, verify, verify. If you do nothing else, when you receive an email that seems a little suspicious, when someone's asking for information, when someone's asking you to click, make a purchase, make a wire transfer, even, hey, what's up? Do you have a minute to talk? All of these things should be verified by you before you act on it. Simply going, hey, did you send me an attachment that I wasn't expecting? No, I did not. Did I really request a password reset? I don't think so. Let me go to my bank website and reset my password from there and not click on these suspicious links. That verification, even if it's from a phone call, then you can text them. If someone emails you, give them a phone call. All of these are going to help reduce things immediately because you're not going to give away all of the information that they're trying to get from you by socially engineering you.
By the way,
verify.
I verify. But I would also say, you know, a lot of these things are targeted. So how, you know, Shanna, Joshua, how do they get away like all this personal information that they seem to know? Like, how do they know that I was the CEO or that, you know, so and so was the CFO?
Yeah, well, Shanna, why don't you take this one, since this is your tweet or your image? Go ahead.
We give away a lot of information on social media. One example is I go to a lot of events and trade shows, and I have a booth, and we post a picture of it, and we talk about being at that booth, and come see Shanna at booth number blah 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 blah.
Get your
Inevitably, yes, get your Defender Fox. Inevitably, every single time I am out at a show, we are targeted with email scams that will look like they're coming from the co-founder of our company, because it's very easy to jump on LinkedIn and see who holds what role. You can go onto our company website and see the information available there. They'll also, give a pretext of, hey, this is Rob, Shanna's out at the, such and such show. I need you to go out and buy gift cards, and scratch the numbers off and send them to me. A lot of the times we'll target new employees for a scam like this because new employees are eager to please. They're unfamiliar with internal processes. They've recently posted on LinkedIn saying that they got a new job update, and these cyber attackers will actually follow these types of things. We may also give away personal information that might hint at our passwords. Just a lot of information. Out of office emails are something that a lot of people don't think of. You might put an out of office email saying like, hey, it's Destiny, I'm in Tahiti. Please contact Joshua for any future requests. So if I'm a cyber attacker, I might send an email to Joshua and say, hey, I know Destiny's in Tahiti, but before she left, she asked me to have you perform this action. So all that information.
So speaking of what can I do with that information, like even without a lot of technology, what can I get from you with this information that I've gathered about you on the web?
Well, we've got a video for that, Destiny. So we're going to watch the wonderful Rachel Toback. The theme of some of these videos is kind of journalists subject themselves to hackers. So here's journalist Donnie O'Sullivan subjecting himself to Rachel Toback, and Rachel showing just what you can do with this publicly available information.
Well, let's get started, I guess.
Okay, so you want to assume that everything that you put on social media is public. Information that can be found in places like this can be used to authenticate you with different companies. Do you remember this tweet?
Yeah.
I used this to gain access to your current address.
What?
So what I did is I called up this furniture company right here, and I basically said, hey, we're gonna buy another one of these pieces of furniture, but I need to make sure that I don't accidentally have the wrong information on the account. And they said, no, I mean, you ordered something a while ago, but the thing that you ordered we shipped to this address. I got your current address. I got your birthday from Twitter. I called like pretty much every business that he ever listed that he used on his Twitter or Instagram. What you have to understand is when you do that, I now know which companies you use, and I know which companies to call as you. So I'm gonna be doing these phone calls. I'm gonna be actually live hacking. So when I call, your phone number is gonna display on their caller ID.
This is Donnie O'Sullivan.
Who are you really?
No, this is Donnie O'Sullivan. I can tell you my address, phone number, date of birth.
Whatever you need to know to verify that that's really me.
That's wild.
I am on the road right now and I'm having trouble getting access to my internet, but I need to transfer points to my friend for a bridal shower. Hopefully you can help me out over the phone. I have all the information. I have 90,000, is that correct? So the first and last name is Rachel Toback. Oh, they've been transferred? Okay, fantastic.
Good
data that we're collecting from Twitter, and then there's like the dark website? Is there anything that's kind of in between that?
There is. So what we think of as, the web that we all know and use is the surface web. So when you go to Google and you do a search, anything that's coming back from that, you're looking up stuff on Wikipedia, wherever, the surface web, it's about 4% of the web. These are very approximate numbers. And then the dark web, I think people have heard of at the bottom of this iceberg visual, where you have all of the illegal information, where when criminals steal your information, they're going to try to sell it. That's where they're going to try to sell it. There's also a lot of political activism that happens there, people that have needs for privacy. But the vast majority of data is stuff that's in what's referred to as the deep web, which are things that are not searchable by search engines, but are behind logins, like behind your New York Times subscription, behind your Candid database subscription, behind different logins where you may need to go, everything that's behind what used to be GuideStar would be an example of information that's on the deep web.
And anybody can get to that?
It ain't expensive. So, I want to be very clear. I'm not in any way suggesting anyone go to Spokeo. It's not a company that I think is very reputable based on most of what I know about them. But here's my phone number, which, is in my email signature. And for the low price of 95 cents, I can buy all of this information, names of my family members, my current location, my current address, what type of phone I'm using, my address history, all of that information available for the low price of 95 cents. And if you want to scare yourself, you can go plug your own name or your own phone number into one of these engines. Again, I do not recommend giving Spokeo your money, but you can kind of see. Shanna talked about the kind of research that people will do. And the next video we're going to show gives you an example of how an attacker using this open source information to gather up information about what are the tools that someone uses, what are the people that they know, how do they work, what's the level of damage effectively that they can do to someone. So this is
the scary one, I will say.
How bad can it get?
Halloween fear.
All right, here we go. Let's watch Kevin Roos get hacked by Dan Tentler.
I asked Dan Tentler, a well-known security researcher, to turn all of his firepower on me.
I did get into quite a number of things that I found.
So what were the first things you did? How did you start hacking me?
I quickly found your Squarespace blog and had an idea. Basically what I did was created a bogus Squarespace site and sent an email to you, a phish asking you to go to this website, run this certificate installer.
And I did it, because I'm an idiot.
So once you ran that, it gave me access to your computer, and I created several fake pop-ups that looked like system pop-ups that would ask you for your credentials.
You didn't even have to have my passwords.
No, you gave them to me.
I gave them to you.
Yeah. So I stole your 1Password keychain.
And 1Password is where I store all my other passwords. So effectively by...
And your social security number and your Amex stuff and all your stock trading and bank information. I can send email to everyone in this room as you. I am you right now, if I want it to be. If my evilness is working correctly, it should actually be taking pictures of your desktop and pictures through your webcam every 2 minutes. And I have been watching you for about 2 days now. In coffee shops, at your mom's house, on a plane. Here's your editing stuff. There's you like.
Oh my God! So this is literally
every 2 minutes
through my webcam.
Yeah, through this guy.
How badly could you have messed up my life?
I could have made you homeless.
Not as fun.
So Dan started with he started with the Squarespace research, the open source intelligence gathering. Then he used that information to target Kevin with a phishing email, and it kind of all seemed to snowball from there.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about phishing and why this is probably one of the biggest dangers that most of you are going to see. If you think about the previous thing we mentioned where $650,000 was stolen via an email compromise, and in this Dan Tentler video, it all came in. Yes, there was some OSINT there, but it was all about that phish email. And had any of them verified, they would never have clicked the link to start it. But let's learn to recognize our phish. So the first thing we have is our spoofing, right? He spoofed the Squarespace site. This is essentially your pretext. This is where in all of these different manners, be it a website, email, voice, what have you, Rachel Toback did it too, where you are pretending to be something you are not. And spoofing is one of the things you're really going to see in a lot of phishing attempts, because they're trying to look like your manager. They're trying to look like your boss, your CFO, your bank, your, all of these kinds of things. They're trying to simulate to get you to just accept that they are who they say they are and then do what is asked of you. So really strong pretext in the spoofing. And this is where you see that spear phishing, that targeted phishing. This is allegedly coming from our HR manager about new W-2 forms, or this is from the ED to the CFO asking for that wire transfer. So this is how a lot of that OSINT information is played out to do this kind of targeted phishing. But there's a lot of things that are more general. And here are some of the things that you want to look for. The first one, which is probably the easiest one to tell, is that mismatched email address. Many people in the world have the same name, but what they don't necessarily have is an email address from your organization. And while, yes, you may receive something from someone's personal address, if that's coupled with requests or other things, that's when you should get suspicious. Also, a lot of email systems now have the banner that says, "Be careful." Right? G Suite users will have seen this. This is coming from somewhere else. Be very cautious about this, or other email systems will flag it as well. So regardless of what it's saying or what it's asking for, even if it seems innocuous in the message, that email mismatch is something that should flag you right off the bat, and you're going to think about the verification. Same thing for links, right? When you get a link and you hover over it, where does that link point to? If this is allegedly from Chase Bank with a password reset and the URL does not have chase.com in it, that is something that should again trigger this warning system of, I don't know that this is legitimate. Am I expecting an attachment? Am I expecting a link? Is there another way for me to check if this is legitimate, right? And then when I open up the thing, is it asking me to enable a macro or to download or install anything? Put in credentials before I'm able to open up that link. These are all red flags as well. Other things to look out for are the ones that appear to be innocuous, are bait fish. Essentially, they're dangling that email in front of you, hoping that you're not going to notice that email mismatch, and that they might have possibly been using what's called a doppelganger URL. So maybe you're with Health Foods, but they're replacing the O's with zeros to try and trick you into it. And often this is how the fish and other things get through your spam filters. People often say, well, why are these not getting caught? From examples like this, you'll see there is no link, there's no attachment, there isn't anything in here other than that mismatch and that interesting thing of, is this really the kind of language that this person uses? Is it someone that I communicate with frequently? Why would they be sending me this kind of email? And what they're hoping you'll do is simply respond to it and start the conversation without realizing it's not the person who you think it is. And then the request comes in for your information or wire transfer, gift cards, or to send your cell phone number. So then you start getting smish attacks. Then again, we also have attachments, particularly unsolicited attachments. There's an attachment on this. Are you even hiring? Is this the methodology someone should be submitting these through? And what they're going to do here is lull you into a false sense of security, because that document's password protected. And since I'm really worried and acknowledging security in my email, then you're probably going to think it's legit. Or the emails you get that are saying, oh, we've seen fraudulent activity on your account. Did you place this order with Amazon? If you didn't just get this 82-inch TV, call us at this number in our fraud department and we will help you out. So them giving you that false sense of security is also trying to push you into doing something that is insecure. And then we have our spoofs. So we have our pretext, but then we have our spoofing. And this is where they're really trying to push you with the use of Zoom all over this particular email into thinking, oh, well, I see Zoom in the URL. But I often say URLs your domain address is not dissimilar to Hebrew. You're not reading it from left to right. You're reading it from right to left. So if you are not ending in zoom.com, microsoft.com, google.com, it's the piece that's before it that is telling you this is really not Zoom, it is outlook-mailer.com. That is not a domain that Zoom uses. So again, if you were to mouse over these links, you would see it's not really pointing you to any kind of Zoom address.
And by the way, just so everybody understands, this was a phish that was part of Defendify's phishing simulations package with Roundtable uses for ourselves and for our clients. And I, the person in charge of cybersecurity at Roundtable, fell for this particular phish. Just to show it's not about, I hope anyway, being uninformed or being dumb or being anything. Anyone can fall for these things, and it just takes a second.
That's a really, really important point, that this has nothing to do with intelligence or anything. You're not dumb because you clicked on something. You're not an idiot because you did this thing. These people are smart. They know how to manipulate people. They understand even things like brain chemistry, where we've all been potentially locked in our homes. We're under stress. We're tired. We're, just out of sorts. We even have our brain working against us with certain brain chemistries that say risky behavior actually gives us a larger dopamine response than normal behaviors. So we're being tricked by them, by our own brains, by circumstances out of our control to do things. I've got, someone yelling at me to do something in the background while I'm trying to get my, kids to school, while I'm trying to do my work. And now I've got this email. Is there a meeting that I forgot about? And oh my gosh, this is the third Zoom I've missed this week. Let me just click on it, right? That is all normal behavior, and you shouldn't penalize yourself for it. You just take a breath, move on, and then realize when you make a mistake to inform the necessary people so that you can rectify it. The other thing,
sorry.
Oh no, Shanna, go on.
I was gonna say that email was one of our highest clicked campaigns that we sent out because of that urgency that was tied in. Zoom is one of those, this is kind of like a new Nigerian prince type scam where it's like targeting large numbers of people who are probably all using that service. It's just kind of a shot in the dark that most likely somebody's going to click on it. But there's no shame in failing a phishing simulation, and taking the bait on those. I eat, sleep, and breathe cybersecurity all day long, every day, and I have gotten duped by a phishing simulation as well. So it's extremely important to reflect on your circumstances in the moment where you, like Destiny said, under caffeinated, kids screaming in the background, under a deadline, Monday morning, and also be hyper aware when you start to get to that point again. And it just makes you extra cautious and helps you to stay hyper vigilant. And that's why we do those types of simulations, so that you're building up that muscle memory and recognizing when those attacks are coming in, and responding accordingly. You're getting that batting practice, so to speak. And it's much better to get stumped on a phishing simulation than it is on a real attack. We've got to be hyper vigilant all the time. The cyber attackers just have to get lucky once.
Exactly. And with 200 million plus Zoom users, you're going to get somebody, right? Now, the other thing that the hackers know about are demographics. Well, certain generations and certain people in the workforce for X amount of time may be very heavy email users. There is a whole generation of people that rely more on text messaging and other types of communication formats. So what you will see is a huge uptick in these kinds of attacks coming in through different methodologies. So text messaging is a big one. Social media platforms, wall postings, tweets, phone calls. The phone call, it started with them, it kind of dipped a little bit, and now they're back again. I think all of us have received calls about renewing our car insurance, or probably from Microsoft support to help us with our computer because they have detected a virus, right? So these are actual smishes that have come in to Shanna's account, actually. And, again, they're going to try and get to you where it's something innocuous. Hey, you've got an email or a message from your phone provider, or I will guarantee that Netflix is never giving away 1 year free of anything. But, these are things that you're interested in, particularly package deliveries, right? So the question is, with all of these, it makes it easier for you to fall for it because you can't really expand the link quite as easily. So you don't know if this is legitimate, hard to tell for that phone number, but this doesn't negate the ability to verify on this one as well. I can log into my FedEx account. Was I expecting anything? I can go to my Netflix account. I'm sure if I Googled free Netflix account, if it were real, I would find that out. But what they're really trying to do, the reason why they want us to click on these things is because they want to exploit vulnerabilities on our devices in our systems. So there's a lot of vulnerabilities that are out there, and you'll hear sometimes on the news that there was a 0-day exploit where there was a flaw in an operating system or a security patch needed to be enabled. And even on your own devices, you're probably always getting the pop-up. You need to do an update on your, iPhone, or your Windows needs to do security updates. And all
I just
of these,
need that for like 4 hours every time for like 4 weeks. Is that okay?
yeah, and that's the thing about snoozing. You snooze, you lose, right? But the reason why these are pushed out there is because there's a lot of security researchers who are looking at these vulnerabilities. There are people who are bug bounty hunters who will go and try and find exploits in all different kinds of software, and they get paid for finding them, and then they put a fix out for them. But once they've notified people that there is a problem, that's when the bad guys are going to follow them through and go, oh, you saw that there was a hole. Well, I'm going to try and get in that hole and steal the information through that perimeter you've built. So this is why doing updates on your devices, do those software updates. When your phone is telling you need an update, the applications you use need an update, particularly if they're security related, you do want to do those device updates. And those are taking care of some of the known vulnerabilities, but there are a lot of unknown vulnerabilities, or things that I should say may not be known to you. And a big one of those is what is called a man-in-the-middle attack. And we like this slide because if you think back to 80s TV or even before that when there was an evil twin, you'd just take the same actor and put a goatee on them and bam, now you've got the evil version, right? So what a man-in-the-middle attack is this relates to the use of public Wi-Fi. We all love our Wi-Fi. Wherever we go, we are connecting to it. If it's in a Starbucks, if it's in the park, I mean, we could probably go to outer space and go, hey, Bezos, do you have Wi-Fi on your jet, right? So all of these things leave you open to something called the man-in-the-middle attack. And essentially, it is where a threat actor is going to insert themselves in the situation. So let's say I'm in the coffee shop and I need to get on the Wi-Fi. So same as writing out my grocery list. I then hand that information over to that wireless access point in the environment. Then what happens if you are not connecting to the legitimate access point in that location? Other information can be put in here. So then what comes through on the other side is a message that has been tampered with, right? So in this instance, the 8-year-old is like, yeah, I think we need a lot of Skittles and some other things in there. And that is essentially our man-in-the-middle attack. So what would happen is you would connect to a wireless access point that you think is just regular free public Wi-Fi. And then that information will actually be transmitted through to fake pages that the threat actor has added. So let's say your Twitter, instead of real Twitter, they're now stealing your credentials, or to a fake banking site, or just in general scouring the traffic and the information that you're transmitting because you're not really going where you think that you're going. So the Wi-Fi that we connect to is something that we do, again, put in our list of verification. And, if we can get an 8-year-old to compromise our shopping list, we can get a 12-year-old to compromise our access points.
Paul says that the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connections that we use almost every day are extremely vulnerable to hacking.
I'll never connect to a public Wi-Fi that I don't know.
Really?
Somebody can just hack into that Wi-Fi network and poison it.
He showed me firsthand how a hacker's poison can spread from a Wi-Fi signal.
I successfully know your password.
How you know my password?
And have hacked you. Your login was david.com.
Yes. Yep, let's bleep that out. Wow. So, call me gullible. You got me.
It took seconds. He had my Twitter username and password using a fake page that he'd cloned after I connected to his public Wi-Fi network.
It's that easy. So in other words, if I was sitting at a Starbucks, I went to sign into Twitter,
Yes.
I put it in, they got it.
All right.
And a lot of the
So
times
what do
we
we
set these Wi-Fi networks up with names that you would expect them to be, like, you know, coffee shop guest Wi-Fi or hotel chain name Wi-Fi to try to trick you into connecting to that. So how can we defend ourselves against these types of attacks?
Well, let's ask the audience that. So if you go grab your mobile phone, that page of Kahoot.it you don't have to click anything. It should just automatically notice that there's some activity happening again. And we wanted to just do a poll of the audience and ask, how would you defend yourself, or how could you defend yourself against a man-in-the-middle attack? So we've got a couple of options here. Shanna, Destiny, like any of these?
Other than just quitting the interwebs completely?
Yeah, which, you know, is probably not a bad option for mental health, for cybersecurity, for any of a variety of reasons.
If there's no internet, if there's no cyber anything, you don't need cybersecurity. That's one way to do it. Great, yeah. And so I love everyone listening to the verify message. Absolutely. You know, I'm at Joe's coffee shop. Hey, what's your wireless? Oh, it's Joe's Coffee Shop 2, not connect here and I can steal your data. Great. Using a VPN, also really good for those who are not familiar with a virtual private network. It essentially is a service you can get that will encrypt all of the data between you and the internet on any device you're running it from. Using your mobile phone, using your phone data as the hotspot instead of that public Wi-Fi, another great option. And then, well, yeah, if it doesn't have good coffee, why risk all of your accounts, right?
All right, so we want to ask everybody another question to sort of set up our next section. So we want to ask you, I reuse the same password for, and it could be most of your accounts, some of your accounts, none of your accounts, or you actually have no idea for some of you.
And we like to remind folks that this is not a password manager.
All right, so let's see what everybody is saying here.
What about just a text file saved on my desktop called passwords?
That's better than Post-its? Man, probably worse. All right, so.
Probably worse because the chances are the computer can get compromised. You have to have someone physically in front of your Post-it to snag it.
Yeah, so more than a third of the audience is reusing passwords on most of their accounts, and nearly 70% are reusing passwords on most or some of their accounts. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, that's going to be a takeaway though for today, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about passwords a little bit. All right, so first of all, for those of you that are reusing passwords, I understand, you know, having a bunch of different passwords is hard. And the first thing to understand about passwords is that length is much more important than virtually any other aspect. So the longer you can get your password, the stronger it's going to be. Longer is stronger when it comes to passwords. This little GIF kind of outlines that. Another way to look at this, we've got here at the top 7 exclamation point G2KQ. That'll take about 9 hours to crack a password. This is a couple of years ago, so this is all faster now. The next one, which is a little longer of a password, but look at what I like to eat donuts on Wednesdays, which is what we refer to as a passphrase, just a fully punctuated English sentence. This works great as a password. And, you know, these C, U, B, Z can be very hard to remember. And, you know, when things are hard to remember, you have to go through password resets. And that, you know, can lead you to an experience that we'll show here in a video from the wonderful Stevie Martin, not to be confused with Steve Martin, but the British comedian Stevie Martin.
Username?
steviemartin@gmail.com.
Password?
Okay.
That's incorrect. Do you want to try again?
Yeah, sure.
That's incorrect again.
It was definitely 5 asterisks.
I've sent you a link. You can reset your password from there.
Okay.
You can't use a password you previously used.
Brilliant.
Please enter a new password.
Password?
Too weak.
Rock.
Still too weak.
Diamond, hard granite, man punching.
That password is too strong.
Man punching.
Your password needs to contain at least one number.
7 men punching each other.
It needs to contain at least one special character.
7 men punching each other?
Not special enough.
7 men punching each other.
No.
7 men punching each other. Olé!
Your password contains too many digits.
I'll cut the olé.
No, it contains too few Spanish references.
7 Spanish men punching each other.
Please choose a security question.
How many Spanish men are
You have to choose from the following options. So, mother's maiden name.
Harris.
No, your mother was married before.
What?
Your father's nickname.
Dad?
I hadn't finished. Your father's nickname for your divorced mother's maiden name.
Can't answer any of these questions.
What's your favourite noise?
Oh.
It needs to contain at least one number.
12.
And one Spanish reference.
12 Spains.
Okay, your password's been reset.
All right. So
How would you remember that?
More importantly, even if you have 12 in Spain's, what happens if I did reuse that? So you're telling me I like to eat donuts is a really good, long, strong password. So what's wrong with me using it for everything?
The problem is this. So if I have Shanna here using Sunshine123 BAM or 123 exclamation point for her Dropbox account, and she's also using it for Microsoft, at some point, these passwords will typically get breached. They'll show up in a data breach on the dark web and people can buy them, or you'll get phished out of them and then attackers will know one of your passwords. So if you only have one password or you have one password that you reuse in a lot of places, then if I manage to get Shanna's Dropbox password, I'm also into Microsoft. And by the way, if I know that she used Dropbox and Microsoft use the same password, I may be able to get to other accounts as well. And also, by the way, the attackers will typically know that, Shanna at defendify.io might also be, shanna.utgard@gmail.com. That's the same person. So if they figure out a password that Shanna likes to use, they're not just going to try to get accounts behind Defendify. They're also going to get to use those passwords to try to get to Shanna's personal accounts and vice versa. So this is where that personal professional thing really comes to a head. So you really want to use different passwords on every system that you have and try your best not to reuse passwords. Now we know that
can also be frustrating.
Whoa, Shanna, you go first.
I run out of Spanish references. I wouldn't be able to make that many unique passwords.
Right? But even if I was able to do that, if only there was a video to illustrate what could happen then.
And this is really our favorite video of the whole thing. It's only 30 seconds, but it's such a delight. So yeah, what happens if you start using different passwords everywhere? You might run into...
Hey babe, what's the password for the cable bill?
Rollerblade King 22, capital K.
Okay, what about the phone bill?
It's the entire alphabet backwards. ZYX.
I got it. What about electric?
Shrimp. Lobster?
It didn't work.
Try all seafood.
The words all seafood or like different seafoods?
No, just work your way through the ocean and,
What?
Okay, so yeah, we don't want to be just going through the ocean trying different kinds of seafood. So we really do recommend the use of a password manager for the vast majority of people and the vast majority of organizations. You're looking at LastPass here, 1Password, Dashlane. Other ones are all terrific that things to use. And the password manager will just take care of making random, long, unique passwords for every account that you have. You don't have to remember them, so you don't have to worry about anything. And that is an incredibly powerful thing.
Is it as secure though as when my browser always asks me, should I store my password? Like Firefox and Chrome are always asking me to store my passwords there. Is that okay to do if I don't have a password manager, Shanna?
No. No. There's no authentication method to prove who you are when you're logging into that. So if I'm, working away and I get up and I go, switch a load of laundry or, use the restroom, anybody could sit down at my computer. Like the kids could jump on the computer, which is also another no-no. But if they jumped on my work computer and they went over to Amazon, they could order $400 worth of Amazon things because my browser is automatically saving the password. True story, happened to one of my best friends. There are also tools that the bad actors can use to go in if you are logged in and they're able to gain access to your system and you are, logged into your, let's say, Windows, they can actually scrape all of those passwords out of your browser password manager very quickly and easily, and then they've got everything.
So if I'm putting all of my eggs in one basket, if I'm putting all of my credentials in that password manager, how am I not going to have a Dan Tentler moment where someone's getting into my, my 1Password account and getting all of that out. Is there something better or something I can do to protect the passwords themselves?
You certainly know there is, Destiny, and I'm so glad you set us up for multi-factor authentication. So passwords are a technology we're stuck with until, the vast majority of companies get rid of them, and some are moving to passwordless systems, which is great. But until then, anywhere you have sensitive information, you really want to use multi-factor authentication. So username and a password are two things, yes, but they're both just things that you know. And if you know them, then an attacker can know them. And if that's all that's required to get to your account and your sensitive information, that's not a great thing, as Kevin Roos discovered when Dan Tentler accessed all of his information. So you want to combine factors, and this is an incredibly powerful technology that is very easy to use, that all of you can probably turn on today if you're not using it already. And according to
how powerful is it?
According to a 2019 Microsoft report, this will be on the quiz, everyone, 99.9, that is 3 nines, of attacks can be blocked with the use of multi-factor authentication. And real quick, just to kind of show you how this works, if we look at it here, if me and the attacker, not me, both have my single factor, which is my username and my password, then the attacker has access to everything. The second factor, it could be my phone, could be a physical hardware key that I have, it could be a biometric challenge where I need to use my thumbprint or my touch ID or a facial ID, but that second factor is going to be much harder for the attacker to have, so I will get access, but the attacker will not. Some common methods of multi-factor authentication, you'll notice it called 2FA. That just stands for two-factor authentication, essentially the same thing. You'll also see it sometimes as two-step verification, which is what Google calls it. All the same thing, all basically saying a username and a password alone isn't enough. You're going to need to also, respond to a push notification to your phone where hey, Shanna, you trying to log in? Why, yes, I am. And off you go. Or you get an SMS, or you use an app on your phone, or the most secure option, which is a hardware key. All right. Now, this, however, can cause problems because everybody's like, I got to have all these different passwords, and now I have to have all these multi-factor authentication codes. Going back to this, like, can I just do nothing?
I know, multiple passwords, multi-factor, like multi.
Gotta be something better than that.
I'm so glad you asked, because what's better than multi? That would be single. So what single sign-on is it's the ability to layer all of the technologies that your organization uses behind one pane of glass, essentially saying I'll have a single password and a single multi-factor authentication that's going to get me into a portal, and from there it is just one click to get to everything I need. Think of it as one ring to rule them all.
Wait, is that why they call it a token?
Nerd joke.
All right, for all the Lord of the Rings nerds out there.
Okta is a really good single sign-on provider. They also have a program, Okta for Good, that will give you free licenses up to 50 licenses and then discounted pricing after that. And it is one of the leaders in the single sign-on market. So for those of you in the nonprofit space who are considering making lives easier for your staff by doing single click kind of logons and want to up your security as well, something worth looking into.
All right, so we're gonna skip Rachel Toback's shanty in the name of time. It's a wonderful thing. If you just Google Rachel Toback shanty, you should find that video without any problem. Basically summarizes in shanty form a lot of what we've talked about today, the way the criminals will attack you and then the things you can do to secure yourself. And so we're a big fan of that, but we're going to skip it for now. But what we do want to do real quick, and I'm actually just going to stop the screen share for a bit while we look at the wonderful He-Man here, is I want to ask, we'll just look at faces for a moment. Destiny, what would be the one action that you would want folks attending the webinar today to go back and take? If they're not doing it already, just one thing that you want folks to do, what would it be?
Well, without the risk of repeating myself, I would say verification. I really do think that trying to train yourself to take those extra few seconds or maybe even a couple of minutes to verify all of the things we've learned about that could be phishing, smishing, vishing, social engineering, all of those different things, to take that couple of extra seconds to prove this is a legitimate request, be it through whatever methodologies you need to do it, that is going to stop so many things right there. This wasn't real. Send it to spam, call it a day, move on.
All right, so Destiny's is verify. Shanna, what's yours?
Well, considering I know you and I have had many conversations about this. I know what yours is going to be, so I'll let you keep that one. I'm gonna go with sharing is not caring. So limit the amount of information that you are putting out there on social media. Just to tell you a real quick story here, I used a lot of open source intelligence gathering to get my house, between guessing the door code to save my broker some time, as well as information that I wrote in my letter in order to get it, all based off information that I had found on social media about what I knew would tug on the seller's heartstrings. So that information, maliciously or not even maliciously, can be used against you. Also, the type of information that apps are collecting about you and the type of data that you're sharing. I can guess probably a lot of the people on this call and their password that they're using. It's probably like, child's name, vacation spot, sports team, some significant date like your birthday or your anniversary or the kids' birthdays. Get real fancy, you change the A to an @ sign or add an exclamation point on the end of it. So just really be careful of the type of information that you're sharing. Security question answers, all of those types of things.
All right, thank you, Shanna. And mine, as Shanna and Destiny both know, is multi-factor authentication. Turn it on any account that you care about. Start with your email, go to your file sharing. Most of your banks are forcing that already, but anywhere you can turn on multi-factor authentication, please do it. You learn how to use an authenticator app. It's really not too bad, and it is an incredibly powerful, as we showed from the data. So before we get into our final poll and then our quiz, remember this, the Swiss cheese model from the beginning, this idea of defense in depth for cybersecurity and all these different things. Well, if you are responsible for any aspect of technology or cybersecurity at your organization and you're here with us today and you're like, I would like to learn more about this, then we would love to share with you. And we have a free offer for you. Tomorrow, literally, myself and my colleague Kim Snyder, as part of a community we refer to as Roundtable Square, we are teaching a 90-minute cybersecurity course, Fundamentals in Cybersecurity. You can go to adventure.roundtabletechnology.com if you want to read a little bit more about it and sign up for our training tomorrow. If you sign up and can't come tomorrow, it will be recorded, and we would love to see you there. You could also learn a little bit about Roundtable Square, and it's free, so no commitments to anything, and we would love to see you there.
Question from, I think it was Larry, I have to get back to the sheet, was how do we know this isn't a scam right now? Like the fact that we're all kind of going in cahoot, like what would make this, how do we know this is safe? And what would be something if we were in a webinar where we could say, oh, this isn't right?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, the verify is kind of the first thing, right? You're in the in the webinar, you could ask the presenters, like, what is this website that you're asking me to go to? Why do I need to go there? You could decline. We're offering prizes to try to get you in, but you could certainly choose not to do it if you felt that it didn't pass the smell test for you. But this webinar, you chose to attend it today. We come via Candid. You can trust that Candid did some sort of vetting of who we are and that we're a legitimate source. So there's a lot of things that make this much less likely to be a scam than a lot of other ways this would come. But I love the general skepticism.
And you can check things, check by reputation, things like that. Is it coming from a known source? Is it something that you're familiar with? Did you initiate by signing up for the webinar? When you look at product research, are the results and the people who are giving reviews from good sources, or do they look like they might be sponsored ads for Kahoot's the best thing ever? And no, it's not, a virus or anything along those lines.
Thank you. Yeah, you're making everyone very paranoid, so that's good. So can Okta get hacked? What if that gets hacked? That was kind of the one place you said that was, you could put everything behind that. Can Okta get hacked?
So I mean, no one ever is going to ever promise that absolutely nothing can get hacked, right? But essentially it comes down to the way that you secure something. If you set up Okta and you don't set it up with the proper password controls and the multi-factor authentication, and somebody were to give away their password or their machine were to be compromised or other things, is there a technical possibility? Yes, but there's a lot of safeguards that the product will build in with something called conditional access. That's going to say, if someone is trying to get to this account from a machine that is not the machine they normally use, or from a computer IP address that's not typical for them, or a country that is not typical for them, or not utilizing specific multi-factors like a hardware token, they cannot get into the account. So just like you'd say, probably no one's breaking into Fort Knox. Is it possible? Anything is. Is it likely? It really isn't if you're properly setting up the account and enforcing the safeguards to keep something properly protected. And that would apply to password managers, to any kind of account, not just Okta. It's the best practices that are going to be your safeguard.
Okay, and Janine wants to know, what about password generators? How do we feel about that?
So a lot of the password managers will have password generators in them. So if you're using something like LastPass or what have you, and you choose the select a secure password for me, then that's absolutely fine. When you look at password generators that are coming from a security product, I think that's a great idea. There are some ones out there on the web, and again, check the source of it. Some of them you may not want to use because they could be trying to collect potential passwords, but again, that's usually a Google search, or speak to your IT providers about reputable password generator sites if you are not yet using a password manager.
Gotcha. Viviana wants to know, if they can get all the passwords from the browser, can they do the same with LastPass? Since I was logged in there too, am I supposed to log in and log out every time I use the plugin?
So obviously you want to keep your computer secured. So if I'm logged in to LastPass in my browser, right, so I can use the LastPass plugin to fill passwords, then if someone has access to my computer as it's logged into that, that's not great. So I want to make sure when I walk away from my computer, I lock it. On Windows computers, you can just hit Control-Alt-Delete and it'll lock the computer just off that simple keystroke. On Macs, you can set up what's called a hot corner, where I just move my mouse to a corner and it locks the computer. So I encourage you to make sure you never walk away from a computer that's logged in and leaving it like that. And that will generally give you good protection. And again, the passwords in LastPass or 1Password or Dashlane, those are encrypted inside the vault. So attackers can't extract those as easily as they can from a browser password manager, which doesn't have the same security.
And you do also have
if you're
settings.
applying multi-factor on all of those other accounts as well, that is even if you drove around like the identity guy with a social security number on the bus, if you put your username and password on the side of your car and drove around, if you have multi-factor authentication enabled, they only have one of those two verification methods.
Right. So you might have my Gmail password, but without my phone or my hardware token to get into that next step. Just like if I found your keys on the street, if I don't know where you live, I can't get into your house. Or if I'm standing in front of your front door, but I don't have the key, I can't get in. So that's why multi-factor is very important when it comes to securing passwords.
Okay, so I'm just going to let the audience know what's going on next, but I'll pose this question first. Leah wants to know, could you tell us what firewall settings we should use? There's an option on Macs to block all incoming messages, even basic ones, file sharing. Is that good, or would that stop important updates from coming through, or something else I should know that's good or bad? So while you guys think about that, I'll just let the audience know, I put this in chat already, that we have a couple of great webinars coming up. Next week would be the nonprofit career, kind of figuring out how to put everything online. So that's scary now, but tell your story digitally, your career story. And then we have staying compliant in the ever-changing online fundraising landscape, and that's coming up. And I did put those in chat. But yeah, so what firewall should we be using? What's too much or too little?
Who wants to take that one? Destiny or Shannon, you want, or you want me to grab that?
Well, I'll
That's a
start
you
out with the
question.
answer that people hate a lot of times, and that is it depends. It depends on what you need to do. It depends on what you need access to. It depends on what you might want to have access. Just like location sharing, there are people who don't want anyone to know where they are, and there are some people who want very much the whole world to know where they are. And the same thing I would say with firewalls is that you want to take a look at what kind of communications are required for you. Do you want to have AirDrop turned on? Do you have printer sharing or other things that you need to leave enabled in order to perform your duties? There's always a little bit of a trade-off between convenience and security. And we're saying, you know, firewalls all are definitely important, but you do have to take into consideration, if you don't want to allow certain things in, what is the alternative method to doing that? So I'd love to say, click these 5 settings and turn those ones off, but there is a little bit more complexity to it than that. But Joshua, did you have anything to add on it?
I mean, my default would be, yeah, turn your workstation firewall. Her question sounded like it was about her actual workstation. I would say turn your workstation firewall on. That's a great idea. If things stop working, you can always turn it off and go figure it out. But if you turn it on and things that you want to work stop working, it's great if you can get some technical help from a company like Roundtable or from wherever your IT provider is to help figure out what settings you need to have. So you can have it on and only, you know, opening holes for the things you know you need.
Oh, and to be clear, on is good. It's just the what particular settings should we recommend? That's the it depends.
It's kind of the same thing with just cybersecurity in general. A lot of people ask us like, well, how many protections, how many measures do I need? How many pieces of Swiss cheese do I really actually need? And it's the same type of answer. It's, you know, you want to go through that risk assessment. You want to determine what you have to protect, who you have to protect it from, how bad it would be.
Yeah.
And the likelihood, yep. And then from there, figure out what is going to help get you to an acceptable level of risk for a reasonable investment that makes sense for your organization. So, you know, and my favorite people here at Roundtable are happy to talk to you about those types of things and just help you kind of get a really clear picture of where you stand. It's kind of like going to the doctor for a health assessment. You can't start diagnosing and treating and, you know, fixing until you've got a good understanding of what's wrong and where your health picture stands.
Wonderful. With that, I have to say thank you, and we have to go. Just so you know, you had some great comments. Someone said your ability to convey a serious issue in a humorous manner is palatable. Oh my goodness, love it. I'm laughing. Alberto loved your video clips, and you know, I just want to say thank you so much for keeping this engaging. I wish we could keep going, but just a reminder to everyone that we will send out a recording of the webinar in 2 business days, and you will also get a feedback survey at the end of this webinar, and we'll also email it. And so all that love you were showing, I hope that you'll let us know in the feedback. And we hope you have a great rest of your weekend. We really thank everyone for being here. Thank you guys for a great presentation.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.